History says empires end. They are conquered. They collapse. They disappear. But some historians suggest that ending is not the same as finishing. 5 empires were declared over. All 5 are still here. The dates are precise. 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire. 1453 Byzantium. 1806, the Holy Roman Empire. 1922, the Ottoman Empire. 1997, the British handover of Hong Kong. Each date marks an official ending, a transfer of power, a signing of documents, a lowering of flags. And yet, the law, Rome wrote, still governs. The borders the Ottomans drew still cause conflict. The language the British spread still connects the world. The trade routes the Mongols opened still carry goods. The idea of empire, the very concept of a single civilization governing many peoples, still organizes how the world thinks about power. Some historians suggest that what we call the end of an empire is usually just the end of the administration. The deeper structures, the laws, the languages, the borders, the beliefs, the trade patterns continue, sometimes for centuries, sometimes indefinitely. 5 empires, never really finished. What the textbooks say, the standard historical account of empires follows a familiar pattern: rise, peak, decline, fall. Rome rose from a city-state, conquered the Mediterranean world, reached its peak under Trajan, declined through a combination of military overextension, economic strain, and political instability, and fell officially when the last Western emperor was deposed in 476. The Ottoman Empire rose from a small Anatolian principality in the 13th century, conquered Constantinople in 1453, reached its peak under Suleiman the Magnificent, and was formally dissolved in 1922 following defeat in the First World War. The Mongol Empire, the largest contiguous land empire in history, was built by Genghis Khan in the 13th century, fragmented into 4 successor khanates after his death, and effectively ended by the 14th and 15th centuries. The British Empire, at its peak, the largest empire in human history, covering a quarter of the Earth's land surface, was dismantled gradually through the 20th century, the last significant transfer occurring in 1997. The Persian Empire, the Achaemenid dynasty founded by Cyrus the Great, was conquered by Alexander the Great in 330 BC. These are the official endings: clean, dated, documented. But one interpretation holds that these dates mark political transitions, not civilizational conclusions. 5 empires, all officially over, all still running in different forms. Empire 1, the British Empire. The British Empire officially ended across the 20th century. India in 1947, Africa through the 1950s and 60s, the Caribbean, the Pacific, Hong Kong in 1997, flag by flag, independence by independence. The official story is decolonization, the return of sovereignty to peoples who had been governed without their consent. And that story is accurate. But one interpretation holds that what ended was the administration, not the system. The English language remains the primary global language of business, science, diplomacy, and the internet. Over 1.5 billion people speak it. Not because Britain still governs them, because the infrastructure of the empire, the schools, the legal systems, the administrative structures embedded English so deeply that removing it would mean dismantling everything built on top of it. The Commonwealth, 56 nations, 2.5 billion people still meets, still coordinates, still shares legal and educational frameworks rooted in British colonial administration. Some historians suggest that the British Empire never really decolonized. It changed its governance model from direct rule to what some scholars call soft power, the influence of language, law, education, and culture that persists long after the soldiers go home. The record shows a country that formally surrendered its empire over 50 years and retained global influence that most empires never achieve at their peak. What it doesn't show is where the empire ends and where the inheritance begins. Empire 2. The Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was formally dissolved in 1922. The Caliphate, the spiritual leadership of the world's Sunni Muslims, held by Ottoman sultans since 1517, was abolished in 1924. The Sultanate ended. The borders were redrawn. New nations were created: Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, in the space of a few years. And yet, some historians suggest that the map of the modern Middle East is less a new beginning than a frozen moment of Ottoman collapse. The borders drawn after the First World War, largely by British and French diplomats, divided Ottoman administrative units that had existed for centuries. The tensions those borders created between communities, between religious groups, between ethnic identities that the Ottoman system had managed through its particular form of plural governance did not disappear when the borders were drawn. They were institutionalized by them. One interpretation holds that many of the conflicts in the modern Middle East are not new. They are Ottoman-era tensions that the empire managed imperfectly but continuously for 400 years, and that independent nation-states have struggled to contain ever since. The record shows a region whose borders, administrative traditions, and inter-community relationships were all shaped by 5 centuries of Ottoman governance. What it doesn't show is what the region would look like if the Ottoman system had been replaced by something equally durable. It wasn't, and the space that left is still being filled. Empire 3. The Mongol Empire. The Mongol Empire is usually presented as a story of destruction. Cities burned, populations decimated. The Islamic Golden Age ended by the sack of Baghdad in 1258, and that destruction was real. But some historians suggest the Mongol Empire's more lasting legacy was not what it destroyed, it was what it connected. At its peak, the Mongol Empire stretched from the Pacific coast of China to the borders of Poland. For the first and only time in history, a single political authority controlled the entire length of the Silk Road. The Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace, created conditions for the largest expansion of trade, communication, and cultural exchange in the pre-modern world. Goods, ideas, diseases, and people moved across Eurasia at a scale and speed that had never been possible before. The Black Death spread along Mongol trade routes. So did paper money. So did gunpowder. So did the printing press. Some historians suggest that the Renaissance, that extraordinary flowering of European civilization in the 14th and 15th centuries, was partly a consequence of the Mongol trade networks, of Chinese and Islamic knowledge flowing westward along routes that the Mongols built and protected. One interpretation holds that the Mongols did not destroy the medieval world. They connected it, and that connection, the idea that Eurasia is a single trading space, never fully disappeared. The record shows that the Silk Road trade routes the Mongols consolidated are still, in modified form, among the most important economic corridors in the world. What it doesn't show is who first proved they could be controlled. That proof was made in the 13th century by horsemen from the steppe. Empire 4, the Persian Empire. Cyrus the Great founded the Achaemenid Persian Empire in 550 BC. Alexander the Great conquered it in 330 BC. That is, officially, where the Persian Empire ends. But Persia did not end with the Achaemenids. The Parthian Empire, the Sassanid Empire, the Safavid dynasty. For 2,500 years after Cyrus, different dynasties, different religions, different political systems, but a continuous Persian civilization, governing roughly the same territory, speaking variants of the same language, maintaining the same sense of civilizational identity. Some historians suggest that Iran, the modern nation-state, is less a country than a civilization that has been reorganized many times but never replaced. One of the oldest continuous civilizations on Earth. The Persian language Farsi has been spoken continuously for over 2,500 years. Persian poetry, Persian architecture, Persian administrative traditions, all of them survived Arab conquest, Mongol invasion, and Turkic rule. One interpretation holds that what made Persian civilization so durable was its capacity for absorption. Every conquering power that entered Persia was eventually Persianized. The Arabs brought Islam, and Persian culture shaped how Islam was expressed, administered, and philosophized for centuries. The Mongols conquered Persia, and their successors became patrons of Persian art and literature. The record shows a civilization that has been conquered many times and absorbed every conqueror. What it doesn't show is whether that absorption is strength or simply the longest form of patience in recorded history. Empire 5, the Chinese Empire. The Chinese Empire officially ended in 1912. The Qing dynasty was overthrown. The last emperor abdicated. The Republic of China was declared. After 2,000 years of imperial governance, it was over. And yet, the People's Republic of China, established in 1949, governs roughly the same territory as the Qing Empire, administers it through a centralized bureaucratic system with roots in the Han Dynasty 2,000 years old, maintains a single official language, Mandarin, imposed as a unifying force across hundreds of regional dialects, and defines its national identity in terms of a continuous civilization stretching back 5,000 years. Some historians suggest that the Chinese Communist Party is, in a structural sense, the latest dynasty in a 2,000-year sequence, not ideologically. Administratively, the Confucian emphasis on meritocratic bureaucracy, the centrality of the examination system for selecting officials, the concept of the mandate of heaven, the idea that a government's legitimacy depends on its ability to maintain order and prosperity. All of these ideas predate the People's Republic by 2 millennia. One interpretation holds that what changed in China in 1949 was the ideological justification for governance, not the governance itself. The record shows a country that has, across 2,000 years and multiple different dynasties, consistently maintained a centralized bureaucratic state governing the same core territory. What it doesn't show is whether the system creates the civilization or the civilization creates the system. In China's case, perhaps they created each other. Conclusion: 5 empires, 5 official endings, all still running, not as empires, not in the political sense, but as systems, as ways of organizing law, language, trade, belief, and governance that outlasted the powers that created them. This is what the history of empires teaches, if you look beneath the dates, that the most powerful thing an empire builds is never its armies. It is its infrastructure, the roads, the laws, the languages, the borders, the beliefs, the things that people keep using long after the builders are gone. Because the builders are always gone eventually, and what remains is what was built to last. The British built a language. The Ottomans built a regional order. The Mongols built a trade network. The Persians built a civilizational identity. The Chinese built a bureaucratic tradition. All of it still standing. All of it still, in its quiet way, governing. It is worth asking, when you look at the world today, how much of what you see was designed by people who have been dead for centuries, and how much of it was designed to outlast them. Empires don't end when they fall. They end when the world they built finally stops running. Next, the ancient trade routes that still control the modern world. This video explores history and disputed theories for educational purposes. Number 4. Sonnet 4.6 Low.